I'll now have a look at the HSL panel. That's the Hue, Saturation, Luminance panel. Now before we start, I just want to apply some basic adjustments. Now we can do that through the Basic panel, or we can go to our presets, and I'm just going to apply the basic adjustments. And when I do this, you'll see these sliders just move around a little bit like that. Okay, so we've applied some basic treatment to the image. And now we can go to our HSL panel. So what can we do with this? Well, we've got the hue. Hue is color, really, the type of color. We've got saturation, and as I change these, you can see that the sliders remain the same, but they have a different effect. And we've got luminance. So saturation is to do with the amount of color we have, and luminance is to do with the brightness. We've also got an all, which shows you hue, saturation, luminance, all of the controls listed there. We've also in here we've got color, and that's just a sort of dumbed down HSL arrangement, whereby we've got red, orange, yellow, and we've got sliders for hue, saturation and luminance for each one of these colors. I won't bother with that control there because we can do everything in the HSL side of things. I'll just collapse that down to hue for a start. And we've also got black and white. We can convert an image to black and white, and this is the best way of converting an image to black and white, through this panel here. First of all, we'll have a look at the HSL and see what that does to our image. I'll just get rid of this panel to the left so we can expand our image a little bit, see what we're doing. So hue, what does that do? Well, if we drag the red slider, watch what happens to the red balloons. It basically changes the colours of the reds to a slightly different hue within a modest range. Same with the greens. If I can click on the greens. Okay, so you're targeting a specific colour and then just changing the colour a little bit. We can, if we want to, go into the adjust hue by dragging in the photo. So select the targeted adjustment tool, go into the image and drag. So you can see that that is targeting the purple and the magenta, because there's a bit of purple and magenta in those balloons there. Okay, double click to centralize. I don't really use this much for photography. There's not much use for it here. And of course, everything we do here is global. It affects the entire image. So if you just trying to change the color of that green there, you'll find that all the other greens will change as well. Saturation. This is more useful. So blue, we can increase the saturation or decrease the saturation. Okay, so you get the idea, and of course you can have multiple adjustments. Luminance, this is also useful as well. If you've got blue sky, you can just click the blue and make the sky darker. Maybe a little bit like a polarizing filter. It doesn't do the same thing as a polarizer, but it can give you a kind of the same sort of effect. But again, if you've got blue in the foreground, you might be affecting the sky, but you'll also be affecting all the blues in the foreground as well. So global effects, but these can be useful to affect your image. Black and white. This is one of the really good things about this panel, is we can change the color information within the image, because it's a color picture, and using the red, orange, yellow, green sliders, we can change the brightness relationship between the different colors in the image. Now this is where we would have used colored filters on the camera with a film camera. So we've got an infinite variety of colored filters we can apply over the top of our image in Lightroom here to try and change the brightness, intensity of the different colors to give us a more interesting, contrasty image. So this is how we would create a black and white image. It's also worth bearing in mind, if we go to our basic panel whilst we're doing this, dragging the temperature slider changes the blend of red, green and blue in the image and has a huge effect on the way our HSL black and white interpretation is rendered. Same thing with the tint slider. More purple, more green, and it changes the relationship of colors within the image and the way the black and white interpretation is rendered. Back to our HSL black and white. So I just want to reset that image. So that's where you would do your black and white conversion. Oh, and of course in the basic panel you'd also have access to clarity and all the other controls for controlling your white clipping, your black clipping, contrast and exposure and everything. Okay, so you can do all of that. They're all additive treatments. Back to that, I'll reset the image. Let's just go back to our black and white, do a conversion there. We can also do split toning. So if we go to our split toning panel, you can see we've got a control for highlights and a control for shadows. I'm going to put the saturation right up so we can see what color we're dealing with. So with the highlights, if we maybe have it for blue, okay, something like that, then we can drag our saturation slider down. Okay, you're only looking for subtle effects here. I might have to just keep it a little bit higher than I'd normally do, just so you can see it on the screen. And then for the shadows, so split tone is basically dealing with two tones if we're using a black and white image to start off with. Get the hue that I want, maybe a sort of red there, and drag that down. So the highlights are a kind of blue color and the shadows are a kind of red color. And the balance between the two can be changed through our balance here. Okay, so we've done black and white and split toning. That's how we do that. I'm going to reset it again. If we go back to the HSL panel, if you're interested in doing like spot coloring, so we've got a black and white image and just bringing back certain areas of color, we can do that within Lightroom as well. Now here we need to go to the saturation panel and drag back all of the sliders. So basically we're dealing with a black and white image. Now we can go to our adjustment brush, and with the saturation you can change the level of saturation, but you need to have a positive amount, and I'll go to 100% so we can see what we're doing. We can change the feather and the size of the brush, of course. So we can use the right bracket key, make it bigger, left bracket key, make it smaller, and we can change the size of the feather by pressing the shift key and right bracket, shift key and left bracket. Okay. Now normally you do this with a lot more precision, but just so you can see the effect, I'm going to brush into this area here, and you can see it's revealing the color information underneath that balloon. Okay, so we're basically brushing back in color information from the underlying image. And you can change the intensity of that effect by just dragging the slider. If you want a new one, a new brush, okay, so maybe we can have this brush at full intensity. Okay, so now we've got a pin there for the less intense colour popping, and we've got a pin there for the more intense colour popping. So hopefully that's given you a bit of an idea as to what we can do with the HSL panel, split toning, and maybe even the local adjustment brush when we've converted to black and white and we wish to colour pop the image.